No, I'm teasing.
Huh?
I'm teasing.
No, it's okay. No problem. I can take it. You're not the only one.
Okay, so I'm going to officially call the meeting, the Albany Port District Commission meeting, to order. And I'll introduce myself, and we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. My name is Georgette Steffens. I'm the chair of the commission.
Noel Finch, Commissioner.
Joe Coffey, Treasurer.
Tiger Valley Commissioner.
Bill Raines, Federal Marine Terminals.
Jack Corella, Albany County resident.
Bill Hempel, Albany Maritime.
Richard Lescavar, Albany Maritime.
Annette Gasperry, Port of Albany.
Megan Daly, Port of Albany.
John Cosa, Port of Albany.
Tony Vassal, Business Development and Marketing Manager.
Patrick Jordan, General Counsel.
Eric Smith, Director of Internal Controls and Enterprise Analysis.
Richard Hendrick, General Manager.
All right, thank you. So everyone should have received a copy of the minutes, the draft minutes from our December 13th meeting. If there's no changes, I'll put the motion to approve.
There's one change, the second paragraph, where you acknowledge the residents that were here in the room.
Yeah. But that was added.
That language has changed slightly from what was in the draft. Just a different
Sure, so those were
iteration of what they were,
Okay.
what they were here for.
Great, thank you. So if everyone's okay with that change, accept the motion.
I make a motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
So we have some housekeeping things to do here. We have the election of our 2017 Albany Port District Commission officers. The Governance Committee had met earlier today and is presenting myself as chair, Joe as treasurer, Dominic as secretary, and Noel as assistant secretary. So we have that in resolution, the first one of 2017. Again, with those members as their officers. So with that, I'll take a motion to approve the officers.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you so much. So the next resolution we have here is our annual multi-year contract review. And so my understanding is that we haven't entered into any new multi-year contracts. And then attached there are the ones that are currently still active. Is there any additional information that we should know about the contract?
No, many of these are in their final, either the final year of the term or if there's a renewal, they're in their final year of the renewal, so we will be procuring the necessary services to replace these contracts when they expire.
Eric, is this list a little bit abbreviated too much in the past? It seems like the list in the past were longer.
Yeah, we're very careful that we're only capturing those vendors that we actually have written agreements with. I think in the past we had taken a broader viewpoint and looked at engineering firms that might have been I guess pre-qualified, but that's not really, that doesn't meet the requirement of what we're trying to do here. So yes, we've narrowed it down and got more precise with this list.
So previously we had like an appraisal firms, were they under the same kind of arrangement as pre-qualified?
They were, their terms had, that was the same thing, and their terms had expired, but again, it was, we'll select you, do appraisal work, but each appraisal itself becomes the contract.
Would have an RFP proposal?
Yes.
Gotcha. So these are the active?
These are the active, yes, that's correct.
And he said, so looks about half of them will expire this year. So we can expect another round of RFPs probably later in the year.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other questions on our contract? If there's no questions, I'll take a motion for resolution 2-2017, which requires the board to annually review any contracts involving services to be rendered over a period of 1 year, in excess of 1 year. Is that motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Right, so I believe in your packet is also our pre-audited financial statements. Eric, are you going over those?
Sure, as Georgette indicated, distributed prior to the meeting is our budget performance on a pre-audited basis. Field work for the audit of the 2016 financial statements will begin tomorrow. So we will continue to work with UHY and review things internally from a transactional basis, which could, I would say at this point, perhaps modestly change some of the results here. I think the impact would maybe more significant or more fluid on the balance sheet for the non-cash account activity. But essentially these pre-audit results indicate that operating revenue underperformed the budget by about 4%. Operating expenses exceeded the budget by about 5.5%. Within those categories, there's some significant outlying activities, specifically operating revenues we've discussed throughout 2016 has been adversely impacted by the absence of labor activity. That's something that in previous years had been more robust than it turned out to be in 16, and in 17 that activity is not budgeted. So if we were to exclude labor activity, operating revenue would come in within a 1.5 of the budget. Additionally, other and miscellaneous revenue is impacted by the fair market value adjustment on investments, so that required a $20,000 adjustment to bring our carrying value of our investments in line with where they were as of December 31st. Operating expense, the big outlier there is the work that we paid for from Louis Berger. That's basically the big driver behind that 5.5% overage. So absent of that, and the operating expenses are flat. Non-operating expenses are flat relative to budget. You'll notice, however, the first two categories show nearly identical underperformance and overperformance. That's the result of some necessary reclassifications for financial reporting purposes. There's not been any unexpected or significant activity in either of those categories that are driving that. It's just financial statements. We take everything related to Corning Preserve, for example, Corning Preserve activity, and that's captured as a waterfront development expense. So rather than have UHY propose an adjusting journal entry at the end of the year, which has been done in the past, we're just doing it now to at least avoid that. I think beyond that, the other big deviation from the budget is just a component of project timing, that being the capital contributions, which is the grant activity. At the time the 16 budget was put together, we had thought there would be more by way of project expense and grant reimbursement than there has been as of December 31st.
So we'll see that activity in 17 then?
We'll see a corresponding ramp up in 17 and 18 certainly.
Can we capitalize the engineering costs that are tied into our projects?
Yes. Yeah, what'll happen is we'll accumulate those costs, and then when the project is done and the asset is brought online, so to speak, those costs will be all put together and depreciated over the life of the project. If there are no, that's the extent of my comments right now. If there are no other questions, I did just want to provide an update to the board on some activity Pat and I and Rich have been working on with respect to project financing. You might recall, some months ago, we retained the services of outside counsel to look at our options for financing our capital needs for our upcoming projects. We've met with that counsel. We have their preliminary analysis, but the bottom line is that based on our bonding ability now, and the requirement that any bonding is based on the full faith and credit of both host cities, which would ultimately result in a tax levy by both cities. So even supposing you could get past that, the opinion of this council is that how our bonding authority was defined back in the 20s is actually narrower than what we're going to need, meaning projects that would be eligible for our own financing based on our bonding authority, the projects we're looking at now, or looking at in the future, particularly with potential land acquisition, that would be broader than what we actually have the authority to do. What they are indicating is that the possible solution could be to establish an LDC, a local development corporation, a not-for-profit entity, as a financing subsidy of the commission. So that's their conclusion. We just received this morning, so I need a little more time to digest it, but I would, cautiously say that this appears to be the path forward. It will take action from this group, certainly. It will take action from one of our host cities to do this, but this is something that both Pat and I were involved with, and Megan as well, several years ago when the city's IDA created the Capital Resource Corporation, but it's an LDC, for the reason that the IDA was unable to issue conduit debt for certain projects, because there had been a component of their legislation that had sunset. So in terms of the mechanics of doing this, it's something a handful of us have experienced before. So I would say, stay tuned, and as we're flesh this out a little more, we will be bringing items for the board's consideration in the near to intermediate term, I would say.
It's not something we would do within the existing, like the Albany LDC. We definitely want it to be our own.
Well, the thing is, if you go, number one, that's not a question that was asked, that I have asked yet. Part of the reason is for us to use a conduit, we're going to pay a fee. So I think if we could avoid that, that would be good. Also, I think because we're looking at projects that would be domiciled outside, potentially looking at projects that would be domiciled outside the city of Albany, I don't think we could be looking at that for a solution. I don't think the municipalities that we've identified potential available land in, I don't think either of them. I'm not sure if they have CRCs, and if so, again, you run into paying fees and potential other administrative requirements that we could avoid by going this path. So.
After you've had a chance to review it, I'd like to see the opinion.
Okay. It's in draft form now, so he's got a couple of typos in here we gotta fix, but yeah, certainly.
Exciting. Thank you.
That's it.
Continuing on the financial side of things, we have two sponsorship requests that the staff is bringing to the commission. They're both things that we've supported for several years now. The first being the Capital Region Chamber Annual Dinner. Rich and the staff have been doing a really great job trying to elevate awareness of the organization region-wide. And so that's the first one, and then the second is working with Historic Cherry Hill on their Hudson River training game and navigating the seas, which has gotten a lot of press every time they do it. And it's a really great way to get local school-age children to learn about employment opportunities on the sea and how trade is done on the river. Has anyone, so the chamber dinner is for a table at a price not to exceed $2,600, and a historic Cherry Hill, that sponsorship is for $2,500. Do you have any questions about either of those, or any concerns about either of those? Sure. So,
resolution?
well, moving resolution 03-2017 and 04-2017. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this point, I'll turn it over to Rich.
Thank you. The ongoing saga, 700 Smith Boulevard. Pat and I had a conference call 2 weeks ago with the environmental engineer from CHA and our attorney assisting us with that. We have forwarded to council for Sims our proposed cleanup plan, which is going to the EPA. We hope that in a couple of weeks we'll have a meeting with Kevin Young from Summers & Young, who represents Sims Metal Management, and we can get moving forward on that. The cleanup plan is, as proposed, we'll get the site back to full use, and we hope that it'll be done in a expedited manner so that we can get business back onto that 10.5-acre site. The Army Corps of Engineers has posted through the local representative, Andrew Dangler, a public comment period for our projects involved with the Tiger Grant. It was posted on January 23rd and expires on February 21st. So far we've had sign off from New York State DOT and NEPA as far as the work that we're doing is going to have no negative impact to the environment, so we don't expect any real concerns with the public comment period through the Army Corps. Once that is completed, we will be already into the RFP period for the beginning work on the Tiger Grant, the dock restoration at the south end of the terminal. It's our hope that on next Monday, February 6th, the notice for the proposals will go out, and then we have a schedule the following week where anyone who's interested will meet here to do a contract overview and a walkthrough of the site so that they have full knowledge of what it is that we're going to be building and what their responsibilities would be.
So we're not going to make a pre-bid mandatory?
The pre-bid is mandatory, yes.
And is
If
it
you-
only going out to the people who have been pre-qualified on our list? Or
No. The construction is going out on the state contract reporter, the Times Union, and any other means that we can get it out there for contracting companies. Now, this is the work that was designed by Moffitt Nickel, but yes, it is mandatory for the pre-bid conference, which is it the 12th of February?
I think it's the 15th.
15th February. To be here, and the engineer who designed the project will also be attending to assist with any questions. Along with that, the second phase of that work, we're expecting the 80% or final drawings from Greenman Peterson tomorrow. We've had several conference calls over the last few weeks, just tidying up the last remaining issues with the put the project there so that, the Big Lip warehouse, again, when we get that tomorrow, we'll digest it for a month, at, well, 22 days. At your February 22nd meeting, we'll move forward with, getting ready for an RFP to be issued for that building in, mid-March. Again, the same thing, a mandatory walkthrough and, pre-bid meeting. And, hopefully both contracts will, be well underway by, May. May?
We're still aiming for the federal contract sometime in February.
Megan, do you have, like, maybe if it's only even for just kind of your own internal use, kind of like a Gantt chart that shows all the projects and the start dates, stop dates, and how they
Oh,
all
yes,
connect?
we do.
Yeah, it's not the Gantt chart though,
It's
but it
something
is,
like,
yeah,
like a
and
top
you can
project.
come into my wall if you want to see it, or on our calendars that we're all
It's
connected.
a digital wall chart?
This one's virtual, or real life, but we
I'm
also,
just curious,
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in that, actually.
in fact, if you want to come and look on the wall, but we seriously do all have it on our phones and on our computer in terms of keeping us all in line on what the dates are and what we need to do in preparation for each one.
I'd be curious to look at it, if you have a PDF of that, just for,
And what it's built off of was, as part of the contract documents with the federal government, we had to provide budget information, the statement of
Right.
work information, and also a schedule. And so we took the framework schedule and broke it down.
And when 2020 gets here, things will be good. We hope to be done.
Did we ever finalize the contract with the tenant for that space?
For the Big Lift warehouse,
Yeah.
I think, Shane.
Oh, still working. I sent them some more information Friday afternoon.
You're feeling confident it will be
Yes,
wrapped up
actually,
before?
I've had several positive conversations. It's literally like dealing with another country, not a bad country. Just that,
A friendly
to go
country.
from talking to a guy in Missouri, then over to somewhere else, and then to an attorney that's there, and then the attorney kicks you up to Schenectady, and the Schenectady person says, I don't know why they're doing this. And then we kind of start again.
All over again.
Bill and I are meeting with two of the representatives. One, Alex Rogan, is coming up from Greenville. We're meeting on the 21st of February. Hopefully, that'll go a long way towards
Yeah.
any continuing questions.
Okay.
As everybody knows, on January 3rd, I sent out a note that our tenant in Rensselaer, Normal Trucking, had an incident at the building. Thank God nobody was injured, but the building during the explosion received such extensive damage that it was ordered down by the city of Rensselaer. We did an emergency contract that day with bids received by 3 demolition contractors. Detono was the low bidder. They were on site the next day, and the building was on the ground by 5 o'clock that night. It's been completely cleaned up, but we've been reaching out along with our insurance companies and to get in touch with Al and his family to bring everything together on a close. I don't see any hurdles. I mean, he was insured with us, indemnified in that insurance, so that we should be made whole at the end of the process here with both the demolition costs and the value of the building.
Still saying he wants to reopen on the site, or what is he saying?
When I talked to Al, he said he's in no way ready to retire. He wants to continue working. He'd love to rebuild. It's certainly, with today's codes for a building with the type of work that he does, it would be totally different that we would have to do. But we'll see where that goes. And, Bergman Associates has completed the, first phase, the draft phase of the work they were doing on the 80-acre parcel. I'll fill you in more on, an executive session on that, but, that work is now phase one completed, and we're looking to, continue with more on that. That's about it.
Any questions for Rich or the team? All right, I think the next two items are Tony's to talk about. As you can tell in our financials, the last month was incredible because it certainly boosted our financial numbers, our original projections, I think, for year end, and that was really put us on a positive, close the year out very positively. So, Tony, if you want to.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson Stevens. Does everybody have a set of the ship's barges, tonnage, and longshore hour reports?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. What we're going to look at is a year-end report comparing 2015 with 2016. And if you go down about 4/5 of the way down to the first page, Ships and Barges Report, you'll see that the totals for 2015 were 69 ships and barges, and for 16, 77 ships and barges. And increase of 8 previous year, or 12%. Now, just to take that apart, since we are at the end of the year, take a look at grain. 5 and 15, 7, increase of 2 or 40%. When you add the two heavy lift and project cargo sectors together, the ships and the barges, for 15 there were 48, for 16 there were 49. So if you look at it, those two categories, or that category, commodity category, 49 out of 77 vessels accounts for 66% of our vessel calls. Molasses fertilizer was up 1. Scrap iron was even, 7 each year. A nice surprise was wood pulp, up 5 from the previous year. And why is that? Well, number one, demand of the product, and also the strength of the dollar, which makes it easier for people to sell here in the United States. And looking historically, 2009 through 2013, we averaged 52 ships and barges a year. Then we had the banner year in 2014, the General Electric Algerian electrification project, where we had 94 ships and barges. Then we go to 15, which we had 69, and we termed that a outstanding year because it was 69 versus the 52 average, up 17, or around 33%. And now 2016, 77. So we'll call that a better than outstanding. And
how many ships were in our banner year?
94. The last time we saw anything like that, a large project, I believe I mentioned it on a number of occasions, was in the mid-90s when we handled a project to Taiwan, 16 ships one year and 16 the next. So that's around 20 years ago. So as mentioned, we had a strong fourth quarter, which enabled us to overall do okay. Any questions? Oh, yes, calcium chloride. We're down 1, and we anticipate a calcium chloride vessel within the next month with about 10,000 tons of product on it. So help start the year off good. And if you would turn to the next page, and we're going to cover that rather quickly. That's the tonnage report monthly. That falls into the category of a good fourth quarter, about 29,000 tons in 15, 50,000 in 16, up around 20 or 71%. Helped enable us to have a strong fourth quarter. Now moving along to the third page, tonnage report year to date. Down towards, about 4/5 down. Totals, 15, 353,000 tons approximately, and 451,000 in 2016, increase of 97,000 tons or 28%. So looking at it and taking it apart, looking at the grain up at the top, up 102,000 tons, that catapulted that number at that point. Then when you add the heavy lift and project categories together, we're up around 1,600 tons, or around 6%. Molasses fertilizer was up 42%. Scrap iron, we were down around 20,000 tons, even though the vessels evened out. Just a situation of less product being shipped basically to Turkey for export. Wood pulp, as mentioned earlier, up around 31% overall tonnage. Calcium chloride already covered. And once again, looking at history, mentioned 2014 was also a good tonnage year, 573,000 tons. And out of those 570,000 tons, 280,000 tons were the grain. Then 2016 is tied with 2010 to be the second best year since 2009, when we started these comparisons. So in 2010, it was 451,000 tons, and grain was around 206,000 tons. 2016, once again around 451, within 800 tons of one another. And grain was 195,000 tons. So, that's a look at history and the various commodity sectors. As for 2017, it looks like it's starting out well. Last January, we had 6 ships and barges. This January, we're going to have 8. And to kick off that comment about 2017 looking good, I'll pass it on to our very capable Stevedore Terminal Manager, Bill Ring.
Thanks, Tony. Just looking at these, you can see, as everybody's mentioning, the last quarter being a good year, a good period. You can see the man hours jumped significantly in the last quarter as compared to last quarter last year. Reason being, we began to see this influx of import cargo, which is bringing in a lot of work, bringing a lot of tonnage, bringing in a lot of volume. Just to give you an example, and this is due to some other GE cargo that we have here for projects that are on hold, but about halfway through January of this year, we had over 6,000 metric ton of cargo on this facility, which equates to about 33,000 cubic meters of cargo. And to add to that, this vessel sitting out here right now is taking about 12,000 cubic meters off right now, 7 of which will be hanging around for a couple of months. So you're upwards of 40,000 plus cubic meters of cargo sitting in here. And all of it's going to have to be delivered. That's jacking up the man hours. It's putting a lot of people to work getting this stuff off and out, and with some other accessory jobs that they want us to do for this freight. Going into 17, what I feel pretty confident about is this influx of project cargo coming in is going to continue. There's several more ships for this project. There's another project in Connecticut. There's another project in Pennsylvania. So again, this volume's going to continue. I think there'll be a little more of an uptake in the export for GE, although it's kind of hard to grab right now. But word is that there's projects that are going to take off and are going to happen. So that should increase as well. On a down note, we are looking at a loss of about 10,000 ton wood pulp this year. Our second wood pulp customer lost their contract for the 2 mills they were supplying, the Swedish mills. So they're going to try and get it back for next year, but for this year we'll be about 10,000 less.
How is that wood pulp being supplied, Is it coming through rail?
No, this is all import from Sweden.
But is it going to New York and coming another way?
No, actually, the 10,000 we lost was going to Vermont and Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So majority of it leaves the state. And there's a few mills, but the majority of it is leaves. As Tony mentioned, probably end of February, early March, we're going to see a shipment of calcium, 10,000 ton, which is a nice boost. I feel pretty confident that I'll say it, that I think we've landed a wind project, which we'll see this summer. going to Vermont, which will be a fair amount of freight. We're going to see tower sections, which we've never seen before. So that's going to add to the workload. And then on miscellaneous project, again, we have another non-GE cargo that these Hercigs that you see out here are going to continue, and we look pretty confident for landing 2 shipments of beer tanks that will be heading for Rochester. The first load by truck, the second load will go by barge through the port because of the size of the cargo. There's a few other things in the wind, but I think it's a little premature to put them out there right now. But those, what I've given you, I feel pretty confident, and I think our numbers look good for. We finished strong, and I think we're looking strong going for this year too.
The stuff that's out there now, is that stuff that would go in Shed 1 once it's done, or would it stay in the terminal?
Majority of what you see outside is outside freight.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the sheds are fairly full right now. One of the reasons being is we do have 6, 7, 8, probably 10 large components in storage for GE that would go into the new building if it was up, or when it's done. If we have that situation, that's where they will go. So that's kind of chewing up a little bit of space that we could really use right now. Like I said, they have a couple of projects on hold. Hopefully they'll leave this year, which will increase.
Is there a storage fee, or is that for it to just sit out there, or a security fee, or anything that we charge for that?
Not at this time.
Depends on
Or
what it is.
just bring the business in.
Yeah.
Bill brought up the beer tanks, and that's an interesting one because I was attending the Break Bulk conference down in Houston late September, and I noticed 3 Asian gentlemen standing by themselves. Whenever I see anybody standing by themselves, trying to make contact. So found out that they were looking to move the beer tanks, and they were looking to move it through Philadelphia. So in working with Bill, we worked putting together pricing and everything like that, convinced them to move them through Albany. So, plus.
I think what helped is the second shipment, they have the access to barging through the canals. Because they're so large, trucking them is almost impossible. So that worked out really well that they could do it that way.
Yeah, we talked to motor carriers, and motor carriers were
Capably wanted to touch it, and just too big. We tried to take right into downtown Rochester.
Any questions for Bill or myself? Okay.
What's the, what project is it?
It's going to Vermont. It's. I know it's the southeast corner of Vermont. I think Searsburg is the name of the area. I know that's not the project name, but I think the area is called Searsburg.
So Tony, you want to give us an update on Port Industry Day?
We are putting together our 4th annual Port Industry Day, Thursday, June 15th. We're looking at a number of different situations. One is because a good thing is taking place. There's going to be a lot of construction and everything going on, so it'll be you might say, a happy place to be. And so we're working on that, and if you have any suggestions for people to invite, please let us know. We're working on that list right now and working on putting everything together. Welcome for any suggestions.
And so that's June 15th?
June 15th, Thursday.
And we moved it out of May just for the construction.
So it won't be too hot, and it won't be raining.
Hopefully.
It'll be
Of
windy.
course,
No snow.
It'll be windy.
Windy's all right. I think we can take that. Is there any other business?
Just one briefing for the executive session.
Sure. So, I would take a motion to enter executive session to talk about pending legal items. All in favor?
I'm so busy.
From the Kane Review.
You want to get out of the house by
Yeah,
Wednesday.
we don't have that plan, so I'm just gonna walk around.
The 22nd, June.
Okay, shipping the kids out.
Good school to get these.
Okay, so, just for the record, no action was taken during executive session. Our next board meeting is Wednesday, February 22nd at 12:30. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is adjourned.
I have been waiting for that.
Oh, that's
My
Tuesday,
whole life.
we took the President's Day, it's Monday, Tuesday off, so like, oh, I'll take the girls to see Frozen at the
Just
Palace.
Yeah,
verifying.
I just saw that, it's on my calendar.
Yeah, we had some kind